Let's go to the next misconception. See, the next misconception, kind of the title I put on it is, the problem is going to grow, right? Now, I'm not going to be talking about the psychology and sociology of predation. I want to get very, very practical, okay? It's like, here's the trifecta of information that lets us understand that this is going to grow. Not just grow, but it's going to grow in the church, all right? So the first very important piece of information is sexual abusers go to where the barriers are the lowest. Okay, I've been doing this work for 26 years. Someone asked me, why does someone want to sexually abuse a 10-year-old? It's like, can't help you much there. But here's what I can help you with is, this person's going to seek access to that child where the barriers of protection are the lowest. That actually makes sense to me. All right, so when you ask me the question, hey, well, where in our culture are the barriers the lowest? Let me ask you that. Where are the barriers the lowest? Most of the answer to that question is ministries and youth sport. Okay, now youth sport is in the process of change, but see, ministries, in my opinion, is still the low water mark. That is where the barriers are the lowest. Now, just to be clear, it's not churches generally. I want to refine that remark in saying that the barriers are the lowest where the information is the weakest. Now, why would I say that? Now, I've already introduced the big idea that what we believe shapes what we do. Here's how that works. If what I believe is weak, my efforts are often weak, and that's what gets me into predictable ditches. So I've got churches that are doing this very, very well, okay? Where the information is strong, the protective efforts are strong, and they're working hard and are successful at avoiding those ditches because they have the correct fence in place, okay? But here's the trifecta of information. Abusers go to where the barrier is the lowest. The barriers are the lowest where the information is the weakest, but it's amazing how ministry leaders think everything is fine here. Stuns me. So when I ask them the questions as to why do you think everything is okay here, the most common answer that I get in Christendom is, we're doing criminal background checks. We've done a criminal background check. All right. That's some strong confidence from the church, but let me ask this question. Is the confidence well placed? Okay. To be able to answer that question, we need some data that needs to go into our understanding and our bank of information, if you will. So here's the correct information. Less than 10% of sexual abusers will ever encounter the criminal justice system. Meaning never even be arrested, not have a record or a piece of paper that your criminal background check can find. Even if your criminal background check is working at 100% efficiency, and I promise you it's not, less than 10%. Now, one study came out recently, less than 5% of sexual abusers will ever encounter the criminal justice system. Now, what that means in practice is, even if Jack Bauer and CSI Miami team up to do your background checks for you, more than 95% of the people that wish to hurt your children have nothing for you to find, and they know it. Okay, that's alarming. Now, careful. See, I've had one particular ministry leader shock me and take good information and respond poorly to it. How did he do that? Now, I taught at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary 5-6 years ago, and I remember having one of the students in my class see me at a restaurant in Fort Worth with my wife and stop me and tell me how great the information was and how important it was for him to go back to his ministry leadership team, study the information, vote, and he told me they saved $500 on their budget. I was like, that's awesome. Now, how'd you save $500? He said, we stopped doing background checks. It's like, you're an idiot, okay? My point was not that we stopped doing background checks. Clearly, background checks are here to stay. It needs to be something that we're doing. We're never going to stop doing it. What I needed him to understand, which I think everybody else did, was it just can't be the only thing you do, okay? It's a part of our system. It just cannot be the standalone system. And for so many ministry leaders, that's really the only thing they're doing, and they think they're fine. Okay, so it's important for us to understand background check has a value. We just need to soberly understand how much value it gives us and make sure that it is not being something we're relying upon as if it is a silver bullet. All right, now, when I talk about the criminal background checks, oftentimes people can be disappointed that it's not more valuable than that. And I am too. I wish that's all we had to do and the problem was solved. Okay. But a lot of my responsible ministry leaders are like, okay, all right, I'll factor that information in and I will adjust accordingly. So that is information that can fit into the thinking and give rise to change. This last misconception is actually the most difficult. The last misconception is like the slide that I put with this is sexual abusers have no visual profile. Okay? Have no visual profile. Right? You can probably write that down, and you know what I know in advance? I haven't helped you. All right? Because I know that this concept is dyed into the fabric of our wool. Right? This idea that I can visually recognize risk is the way that we're naturally wired to do child protection. Remember when I was on the playground, the person behind me and their dog, okay? You see, I'm going to evaluate her environment to determine, is there anything that's going to place my child or the children in my responsibility at risk? If I see nothing that I see as a threat, I close my eyes and rest, or at least I dim my eyes and I rest. So I'm just here to tell you, there's no visual profile, and that's one of the ways that we're getting into the ditch. Let's come at this a little different way. I want to kind of reveal to you kind of the way we're doing it, which sets us up for failure. All right. See, when I grew up in a high-risk home. I didn't know it was a high-risk home. See, I grew up in a single-parent home. My single mother, she had 3 boys, and we were wheels off crazy. Lived in a not-so-great apartment complex. But see, at the apartment complex, it wasn't weird to not have a dad. Nobody had a dad in the apartment complex. But see, in evaluating my circumstance looking back, I realized, that was a little sporty. And so in kind of thinking through, well, when we were young, my brothers and I, what were we doing to make sure that we were safe? I mean, what were we, principles, guidelines, tools, resources to make sure that we wouldn't be sexually abused? And I remember this concept called stranger danger. Okay, stranger danger. All right, most people have heard of stranger danger. I heard it for the first time on Saturday mornings, okay? Watching cartoons. Right? Somewhere between How a Bill Became a Law and Conjunction Junction. There's a little vignette with the kids on the playground. Here comes this dirtbag. He comes over with his trench coat on. He says, will y'all help me find my puppy? Okay. All the kids stand up. They point and they yell, stranger danger. All right. The camera pans out. The adults go, hark, and they run over to help, and the dirtbag runs away. All right. Now, as cheesy as that was for the child, I mean, what's the takeaway for the child? It's like, roger that. All right, dude stops his ice cream truck and he asks me if I give him a ride home. I'm supposed to yell and scream, and adults I don't know will come help me, and the dirtbag will drive away. Like, got it. All right. Now, here's the challenge. Is stranger danger valuable? Because see, stranger danger is not something we made up in my generation. It's kind of the jingle name we place on the way we already do child protection. All right. It's driven by, I evaluate the environment, and if there's something to alert me that there is a stranger that could give rise to danger, I holler, and then somebody will make sure that I don't get into that white van. Is stranger danger valuable? It's the way we do it. Is it valuable? Okay. So I'm going to leave that question right there on the table, because it's amazing how much stranger danger is the foundation of the fence we build. So I want to leave it right there. But before we come back and answer that question, I want to teach you about 2 types of sexual abusers. 2 types of sexual abusers. All right. First type is your abduction offender. All right. The abduction offender. This could be a person with no relationship to the child or the child's family, simply sees the opportunity, child walking home from a sleepover alone, some child unsupervised at a fall festival, grabs a child and goes. All right. We see the news flash. We get the alerts on our phones. We see the signs on the highways. Okay. One way or another, we learn about a child being abducted, and a few days later, oftentimes we hear how the story ends, and it's usually awful. Okay. There's your abduction offender. Now, on the waterfront of child sexual abuse, your abduction offender represents 4% of the problem. 4% of the problem. Compare that to the preferential offender. All right. Now, the preferential offender could have an age-appropriate adult willing to have sex with them, be male or female, but simply prefers a child as a sexual partner. Okay? It makes no sense to me. And it's generally not just any child. It's generally a child within an age and sex of preference. So there's a narrowness to the deviance. So Jerry Sandusky, the guy in the video, boys ages 9 to 15. Okay? Larry Nassar, USA Gymnastics, okay? Girls ages 8 to 16. Right, so there's a narrowness to the deviance, okay? But what we need to understand is on the waterfront of child sexual abuse, the preferential offender represents 94% of the problem. 94% of the problem. That is our problem, Okay, now let's take that information and I want to take you to a fact pattern, and then I want to take us back to the question that we have on the table that we have not yet answered. Okay, now here's the fact pattern. So we had this circumstance that unfolded in a children's ministry. Right? Now this children's ministry, at least as it relates to the small children, did children's ministry in a horseshoe-shaped building. All right, had a fence across the top of the horseshoe. And if you can track with me on that visual, what I've done is it's created a courtyard in that horseshoe-shaped building with a bunch of windows looking out on that courtyard, because that was a playground for the little kids. All right, so there's a bunch of chunked up rubber tire to make sure some kid didn't die if he took a header off the monkey bars. Okay, there was also a play structure in the middle. And in the base of that play structure, there were these panels that created this little box, this little boxy area. All right. On this one Sunday morning, with 2 staff members sitting 25 feet away, 6-year-old boy wooed 4-year-old girl into that boxy structure and victimized little girl. Now, little girl went home with her family and at lunch, very withdrawn. Okay, the parents are really trying to pull the information out, realizing something's wrong. And the little girl even lacked the vocabulary to describe what she had endured. They finally get enough information to realize what had happened. They contacted church leadership. Church leadership called Kim and me, and we came out that following Sunday. Got there a little early to meet these 2 women who set up this playground before the kids came out. And when we approached these women, said, "Can we visit for a minute?" They were pleasant, said, "Of course. We need to talk to you about the sexual abuse situation that happened on your playground last Sunday." Okay? Both of them backed up and said, "That's not possible." It's like, well, actually it is possible, but tell me why you think that. And both of them said, "Because we have a fence." All right, there it is. For both these women who love Jesus and love these children, where did they think risk comes from? Answer, outside the fence. All right, so for these 2 women, as long as there are no ski masks, box cutters, or anybody trying to make the fence, it was a safe day in children's ministry. See, what they didn't understand is that 94% of the risk happens on this side of the fence. All right, now, with that information in mind, let's go back to the question. And the question is stranger danger valuable? All right, at this juncture now I know I need to ask a better question, but you're ready.